Hello and marhaba to this new episode of Talking Sport podcast. Today we have with us a legend. We have with us an Olympic and world champion, the first man to go under 21 second and 50-meter free, the first man to go under 23 second 50-meter butterfly. Today we have with us Roland Schaumann. Roland, hello and welcome to this episode.
No, thank you so much for having me. I know it's taken a little bit of time for us to get me on here, and we've had a couple of technical difficulties, but we're finally here. We're finally doing it. So thank you for having me.
Exactly. Finally we're here. That's the most important thing. So Roland, you have a very long, rich and amazing experience. You got Olympic medals, world medals, multiple medals in different competition, and you're still swimming, and you're still giving, and you're still being in the top level of swimming, high level swimmer. So can you give us your secret, your weapon to keep holding with all the ups and downs in swimming, with our boring sport? Can I say that? Because it's just swimming between two walls. So can you give us what keeps you going, your motivation, your mentality? Please, can you share this?
Absolutely. So there's a lot in that question, a lot that needs to be unpacked. And one of the things that I hear immediately is you ask me what the secret is. And I think that's a common thing. It's a common theme. It's a common myth that everybody's looking for a secret.
Okay.
And throughout my life, throughout swimming, I've come to understand that there is no such thing as a secret. There is no such thing as the right drill. There's no such thing as the best drill, the best exercise for starts, the best warm-up, the best workout or set per se. And everybody's kind of looking for what the best is. And a lot of times when I hear that, I hear somebody asking me, well, what's the shortcut? Okay. And the reality is there is no shortcut. Not in sport, not in life, whatever it is. By virtue of seeking that shortcut, a lot of people end up failing miserably and moving away from the sport. And I know I've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it as well. But sort of my idea of swimming, the way I believe I benefited from this delay or a lengthened career is, just by virtue of the fact that I started swimming when I was 14, 15 years old. I'd always been a sportsman. I'd always been athletic. I played for my regional team in cricket. I played for my regional team in soccer. I'd always done rugby, tennis. I played a little bit of basketball. I've done field hockey. So I was always, developing this concept of self. I was always developing my athletic abilities and developing a capacity, so to say, in terms of being able to do something. But it wasn't really until it wasn't until a little later that I started swimming, and really did start it by joining a triathlon group. Started doing laps and laps and laps, and I know my coach at that point in time had the belief that I might be a 400 freestyler. So a lot of what we were doing was geared up towards the distance events. So I didn't initially gravitate towards sprints at all. That wasn't within the realm of what we were trying to achieve. It was just improve the stroke, improve the capacity, the ability to swim, and see where that gets me. And I think it's because of my late start and the fact that I chose swimming and continued to choose swimming that I kept on being challenged. I think an error that we face and see a lot of at this point in time is kids starting when they're 5, 6, and they don't want to necessarily be there. They go because their parents used to swim, or their parents want them to learn how to swim, or their brother swims, or their sister swims, or whatever it might be. And they're thrust into an environment that doesn't resonate with them.
Okay.
And just sort of with the training that goes over and over, it just becomes this battle, and it just this negative cycle, this vicious cycle. I don't want to be there. I hate swimming. Then they swim slowly, and it just continues to perpetuate this downward spiral. And for me, the other hand is like there were times where I wasn't fast, or I was really, really angry. But for me, it was this very virtuous cycle. Like, oh man, this is fresh, this is new, and this ability to sort of continue to spiral up. And that's sort of what's driven me. I think within me innately, there's a quest for being perfect.
Okay.
I know perfect is a subjective term. It doesn't really exist. There is no such thing as perfection. But for me, I always wanted to be, I wanted to be ahead of the game. That's why I took my start so seriously. To develop my start to be the best in the world, I spent hours and hours and hours, and that's the stuff people didn't see. You know, I bought videotapes, magazines from the US, got them to South Africa. I'd watch them over and over and over. I'd take a big old video recorder. My sister would take it to the swimming pool and record maybe me doing 20, 30 starts. Okay. Then I'd go home and I'd watch every start over and over and over again. And I'd try and see what I was doing and trying to feel myself into a position. And then I'd pull her back and we'd run back to the swimming pool and I'd try several more things. And I did that for years and years and years and years because there was no shortcut, because I was after a feel. So I think it's that concept, it's that belief that there's more, okay, that there's that I still haven't reached that level yet, that keeps on driving me even to this day, because I think now I'm more mature, but I might not recover as quickly. So there's this continuous play in levels where you're strong in one area and then weak in another area. And that sort of starts evening out and changing throughout the length of a career. And many people aren't afforded the opportunity through sponsorships and prize money to be able to continue their careers. Mm-hmm. A lot of, I see it all the time in South Africa, even the US here, other countries. You can swim in high school because mom and dad are sort of funding you. Yes. But when you get to university, hopefully you're on a scholarship. Hopefully there's a little bit of money coming in. Maybe you're working part-time. And but when you finish university, now you have to get a job. Okay. So when I finished university, I was really only starting to find my form, really only starting to get better. It wasn't until I graduated university that I won a major international medal, at the World Championships in 2001. And then 2004 came along, and that was 2 years removed from university. And had I not been in a position to have received, some prize money up to that point or some sponsorship, I might not have been here. So I think that's a systematic issue that we need to change, where kids are really able to come into fruition, be able to find themselves, develop into these athletes. And that's what I'm committed to. I'm committed to the long-term planning of athlete development, swimming development, sports development, the mindset side of things. And I'm tasking on myself to help other people get to 20, 30, 40, 50 years of age, still be swimming, still be finding ways to get better, and then in turn being able to give back to the generations to come behind them.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And like you said, for people to do all this like length of career, when we see now the swimming, there is only 2-3 person who's doing that. Like you, there is Anthony Ervin, if I can remember. I don't know who else has this length of career, but it's possible. If you can do it, other can do it also. You were also talking about the starts, how you were working on the small details of starts, and then swimming. Every detail is very important. One of this details is breathing, and like I know you're an advanced instructor with breathing advantage. This is a company, and the oxygen advantage. Sorry, and this technique is used to improve your health, your performance, and everything. Can you tell us more about it, please?
Yes. So I started, understanding the significance of breath, how important it was when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I'd been diagnosed with asthma and had really bad asthma. So there were nights where I couldn't breathe, where I had to go to hospital, where they had to put me on nebulizers and ventilators just to help me breathe. Okay. At that point in time, being that young, you don't understand the dynamic of why the breath is necessarily important or how to control the breath. But I, at that stage in my life, already understood that air is important. Moving forward, obviously, I've been diagnosed with asthma. I was put on asthma medication as a child. And it wasn't until the 2004 Olympic Games when the therapeutic use exemptions came in. And we were in Athens. I used Ventolin, was one of my inhalers. There was another one that I was prescribed. And we had to prove to the IOC Medical Commission and WADA and FINA and who have you that we had asthma, which was fine. I totally understand that. So went to a lab with the South African doctors, with the FINA or IOC personnel, medical personnel. And we had to do a stress test where they induce an asthma attack. Okay. And they induced an asthma attack and I lost 80% of my lung capacity. It was really that bad.
Oh my God.
So having, and I at that point in time knew I had asthma, and it did affect me, but I didn't realize how bad it was. And the medical commission obviously said, yep, you have a therapeutic use exemption. And the doctors at that point in time said, you need to go and see a pulmonologist, a lung specialist, because your asthma is bad.
Okay.
So really that sort of kickstarted and trying to understand how we breathe, why we breathe, the biomechanics, the biochemistry of the breath, how it affects us. And that's led me down this line of, getting to be an Oxygen Advantage certified instructor. There's a company called XPT. I've been studying a lot of pranayama. It's like the Indians knew how to do it hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, the importance of the breath. And so for me as a swimmer, elite swimmer, trying to parallel this now into the world of swimming has been really interesting, because first and foremost, the optimal way of breathing is not through our mouth. The mouth is designed for eating. It's not designed for breathing. The studies that they're showing that chronic mouth breathers, their mouths are getting set back, inefficient breathing method or mechanics. When you're breathing through your mouth, the breath is generally slow or short and shallow. So you're breathing into your chest. It's going to be. And the worst thing a coach can do or a parent can do is say, take a deep breath, because invariably what happens is when you take a breath, it's breathing through the mouth, shallow into the chest, and you're not really activating you're not activating your diaphragm. So what you really should be doing is breathing through the nose. That's what the nose is designed for. Now through COVID and everything, with disease, bacteria, with even just pollens that are flying around, the more we breathe, our nose is designed to filter air. That's what those nose hairs are in there for. So by virtue of this amazing system that we have up here, the more we breathe through our nose, naturally activates our diaphragm, that imparts a 20 to 50% increase in resistance to the air. So not only does it become more efficient, the breath, it filters out these toxins.
Yeah, like a filter, yeah.
100%. Exactly. And what it does is it moisturizes the air, so it becomes more efficient. So I know if there's anybody out there at the end of a race in swimming who's given 100%, you touch the wall and your throat burns. It's because of the level of air that we're trying to drive in through our mouth. In swimming, it's a little bit different. We can't breathe in through our nose. We can breathe out after an inhale. But it's finding ways now to optimize that on dry land, in everyday life. And the amount of the improved aerobic and anaerobic capacity just by virtue of increasing or improving your breath mechanics and implementing a breath program is incredible. So I've been working with several athletes that have showed a marked improvement in their ability to sustain maximum velocity into the tail end of the race. So it's something that I'm also really, really committed to, is working with athletes, swimmers, national teams, national federations, on not just the breathing side of things, the biochemistry, the biomechanics of things, but it's the mindset. Okay. I think over time in my entire career, I've come to understand swimming a little bit differently than most, being exposed to huge amounts of failure. And I think in the society in which we live, it's, you look up at the time, you're not happy with the time, and you see that as a failure. Well, no, it's not. It's based on our condition to perceive things that way, it is a failure. But to our innate natural selves that are built on pure positivity and pure possibility, it provides us a unique opportunity to grow and to learn and to look at that and say, hey, I'm not happy with that time. That's okay. That's the human condition has allowed that. But what can I take away from that? What was my start like? What was my underwaters like? What was my breakout like? What were my strokes like? There's so many different variables that go into a race. It's not just, okay, well, I'm going to do a dive into the water and that's it. That needs to be perfect. Swimming is not a subjective sport. We can look at that time and break it down into the smallest of components. And then once again, we can work on all of those components, and then we get an opportunity to race again, put them all together, look up on the board, and either we're happy or we're not.
Okay.
But a lot of swimmers look at themselves and see that time on the board, me included, as I'm not happy with that time, I'm a failure. I didn't win an Olympic gold medal, I'm a failure. That's not quite the reality. So it's these unique, maybe not unique, but the way I have understood them might be unique. I want to be able to share this with with so many more athletes than people are at this point in time.
You said, well, last time we were talking, you said one sentence very important: failure is feedback, which is very, very, very important sentence. It's very important for people to understand that failure is not something bad. It's the opposite. It's something good. It's the thing that makes you improve, makes you be better, and improve your level and performance. So Roland, through your career, for sure you had some moments or situation or challenges that you will never forget. Some moment that will stick in your head and you will always remember. Can you tell us one of these moments, or some moment that you will never forget?
Yeah, I got three. I know last time we spoke we had two, and just the way you phrased the question now is it certainly brings up another one. The first one for me, the first two memories go almost hand in hand.
Okay.
In 2003 at the World Championships, I'd spent the summer training with Mike Bottom at the University of California with some amazing swimmers out there, and
Okay.
just wasn't really happy with the training. I got to the World Championships in Barcelona. I finished the prelims of the 50 freestyle, tied for first reserve.
Okay.
So there were three of us that had to go and swim off for first reserve, which in and of itself for me was really tough to deal with at that point in time. I didn't warm down, swam the race, was really angry, touched the wall, time that I went, won the swim off, and that would have placed me third or fourth going into the semifinals.
Okay.
So a huge level of disappointment in that. That was the end of my World Championships. I went back to Arizona. I was complaining about things, and that's sort of the pattern that I'd fallen into, is complaining, not being happy, not wanting to do this workout, and just becoming lazy in a sense. I think I'd become too big for my shoes in very, very many ways. And before one workout, Frank Bush, the head coach at the University of Arizona, sat me down. He was like, "Hey, Roland, I love you. I care about you. You've had an amazing career here at the University of Arizona. But the reality is we want to be around, or we want swimmers that are going to be positive, that, uplift this environment. You're a leader on this team, but you don't act like that. You act like you're entitled in so many ways, and, you don't like doing these workouts. And if you don't like doing these things, then why are you here?" And it was really, really difficult, but essential for me to hear that. I think in society today, we're too scared to tell the truth. The problem is that when truth is told to us, it's not come from a position of love. It's come from a position of authority or whatever it might be. And Frank came to me from a genuine place of love, and he said, "I love you. But if you want to continue on this behavior, it's not the behavior or the person we want to see you develop into. I see this vision of you being X, and we want you to do that. If you're not willing to do that, then I'll give you a hug and allow you to move on to the next team that you believe you can be successful at." And I remember being in tears after that conversation. I was sitting in the stadium at the University of Arizona, inside the basketball stadium, and I was thinking, I was like, how dare he? Who does he think he is? And the more, like, he's right. He is right. I'm not happy. I don't like this person. I don't want to be this person. And 15, 20 minutes later after the conversation, I made that commitment. It's like, Frank's right. I don't want to be this person. I'm destined for so much more. I want to be more successful than that. I want to be somebody that the people around me can look up to as being an example. And so I went back onto the pool deck in my swimsuit and get ready for work. And I was like, "Frank, I'm ready. I can't promise you that I won't complain, but I will catch myself. I will be aware of it, and I'll do my best to limit that. Please be mindful of that, but I'm committed to this." So the second part to that is that was a year before the 2004 Olympic Games. And within a year, changed the way I trained, changed the way I thought and bought into things. And in 2004, obviously, as most people know, we won the gold medal in the relay. I shared that amazing honor with three other Arizona swimmers at the time, Rake Neethling and Rake Neethling and Lyndon Ferns. Darian Townsend came to the University of Arizona a couple of years later. But I really feel it was by virtue of that conversation with Frank that I had this opportunity now to become a better athlete, because somebody had this real conversation with me. I was able to go on and win Olympic golds, silver, and bronze. And if he had not had those conversations, or that conversation with me at that point in time, I may never have gone on to be that successful.
Exactly.
The third thing, obviously, that stands out is my positive drug test.
Yes.
And, in the world out there, based on their knowledge, is like, oh, well, he's a dirty cheat.
Mm.
And I understand that thinking because I believe that about others as well. When Cesar Cielo tested positive for whatever it was that he did, I was like, oh, he's a cheat. He's got to be cheating.
Okay.
The way I look at things and the way we're conditioned to look at things in the world of swimming is very black and white. You either are or you're not. And we forget that there's a lot more between that. It's not quite that simple. And having spoken to somebody like Jessica Hardy, Kika Bensel, Caesar, so many other athletes that had to fight to prove their innocence,
exactly.
In a system that is deeply flawed. And I get why people would think I'm guilty. I totally understand it. I spent over $50,000 trying to prove that I was innocent. I'm still fighting to prove that I was innocent, even after FINA agreed that we'd done absolutely everything to mitigate the ingestion of a illegal substance. Okay. I think it highlights the fact that the supplement industry is highly unregulated. I've got a friend in South Africa, and she tested positive for two substances.
Okay.
She was guaranteed by the supplement company that there was nothing in it. She had her samples tested, came back that there were in fact two substances in it. This was after she was promised and sent certificates to say that it was banned substance free. She went to a shop and bought 2 or 3 different cartons of the same thing up and sent it for analysis. Once again, it came back with the exact same 2 things in. So this is an unregulated, highly unregulated industry, and one that I fought, and at this point in time now, I understand that the people that know me, the people that have worked with me, the people that have swum with me, know that this is something I'd never do.
Exactly.
And once again, I'll still continue to fight. But I think this provides me an opportunity of growth, of learning. It's like failure is feedback. Well, in a sense, this was a failure, and I can, I've been blessed with this opportunity now to have feedback. I can now help others highlight this issue. Ideally, prevent others from going through what I have just by creating an awareness within them. Exactly. So it's something I was, for the longest time, there was a point where I was like, maybe I should just commit suicide, because maybe it's an extreme thought, but it's like, well, now I can leave because I can leave under my control. I think mental health is an issue in swimming that's also not addressed nearly as much, not just in swimming, but in sport, just because of the degree of expectations that we have, and there's no real outlet, there's no real counseling. So part of my mission is to continue to work with athletes, whether it's high performance, as I said, long-term planning, the mental side of things, because we need to start empowering athletes to deal with the failure or change the way they look at failure. To really empower them and give them an opportunity to be heard and just, like I say, see things differently. So it's been going through those 3 things that really have helped shape me and form me. While I don't know why this whole thing has happened right now, I'm starting to get a greater amount of clarity on the development it's forced for me to have.
Just telling your story, Ronald, proves that it gives awareness to people to understand more and to see more, like you said, than black and white. And we saw a lot of stories, a lot of athletes, champions who had the same situation as you, like you mentioned now. And this, we need to work more on with athletes to like you're doing now, like giving consultancy, trying to support athletes around the world, trying to support federation, national federation, Olympic committees, and so on. So I think it's a very important subject, especially that a lot of athletes after their career, post-career, they face a lot of issues. They face a lot of depression, mentality, weaknesses, and a lot of things. So working on this is very important. And I think what you're doing is very important for our community, for the sport in general, and for swimming specifically. To finish this conversation and to finish this interesting conversation, by the way, can you please give some advice to the coaches, to the athletes who wants to be Roland one day, wants to arrive to the high level, to elite level? Can you give us some advices to these people listening to us, to these people who wants to be Roland Schauman one day, who wants to arrive to your level and succeed in swimming?
Yeah, I think you mentioned an interesting point just earlier in terms of people. It's like, to me, in order to develop the best athlete, you need to develop the person.
Okay.
What we have been doing in the longest time is, and coaches fall prey to this as well, is coaches generally coach based on their knowledge of how they were coached or by reading. And I think that's important to be able to study and learn and grow. But we need to understand the principles. We need to understand the energy systems, the technique components, because when you understand all of the principles, you can put things in place for a program. Okay. Being mentored is an amazing thing that not enough people sort of use. It's, oh, well, is there a coach out there that I like the way they coach? Maybe I like the way their athletes race. If that's the way it is, if you find that you can identify with a certain coach and what they do, reach out to them. Ask them for help. Ask them to be mentored. Ask them if you can go and spend a week or 2 weeks on deck and watch them do it. Watch the interaction. You know, watch it digitally. We are in a beautiful place in this world right now where we have so much access to to information, to being able to speak one-on-one. So to be able to learn and grow that way is fantastic. I think the same is true for swimmers. Like I looked at Alexander Popov growing up, and like his stroke, his demeanor, everything about him. It's like, I wanted to be Alex Popov. So I modeled my stroke on his. But I also knew that he didn't have a great start. So I had to go out and develop my start. So there were other people that I developed it, around or based, but I did it myself. Or I did there were components of it that I had to make uniquely mine. Okay. So I think a lot of athletes will look at Caleb Dressel's stroke or Michael Phelps' stroke and be like, I have to have that stroke. But they've developed that stroke based on what works for their capacity, what works for their body, for their flexibility. A lot of people are out there trying to copy Brad Tandy's start where he throws his arms over the top. Well, a lot of people don't know that Brad Tandy has dislocated his shoulders several times in races doing that start. He's far more flexible than most people, but a lot of people aren't taking these things into consideration. They're looking at something on TV and being like, wow, that's amazing, which is great. But they need to understand that they obviously function within a certain, amount of constraint. And while that may be a good idea, they need to make something that is uniquely theirs. So to me, it's such a loaded question because there's, once again, so many components to dealing with it. But I think if you're an athlete and you want to be the best athlete that you can be, set a goal, a long-term goal, even if it seems out of, just out of reach, like winning an Olympic medal. Have that be your long-term goal. And then plan, what do you need to do? So I use this example for kids all the time, is if you look at if your favorite cookie is a chocolate chip cookie, you don't just throw chocolate chips on a table and say, well, there's your chocolate chip cookie. There's ingredients that go into it. There's sugar, there's flour, there's so many different things. And swimming is the same way. There's flexibility, there is mindset, there is aerobic base, there's anaerobic components, there's the way we eat. There's so many different things. And if you're invested, be committed to becoming the best version of yourself, no matter what anybody else around you says, because they operate. What I've come to understand is that if anybody says anything to you, it's a perspective, it's a conversation. Okay. It doesn't mean it's real. It's their perspective, it's their opinion. So the amount of people that I've had in my life be like, oh, Olympic gold, you're never going to get there. Wow, why would you want to do that? Okay. And coming from South Africa and any other small countries out there, it's like, what's the only thing that's stopping you from really becoming a champion is yourself. Not your situation, because there are people that come out of really small swimming pools and really bad situations that win Olympic medals. Don't be the obstacle or the roadblock that stops you from getting anywhere. Don't blame anybody else. Take the responsibility to do everything you need to do within your capacity, within your power. And there's so many things, if you don't know where to start, reach out to me. Exactly. I work one-on-one with athletes. I work with groups. I work with national teams. I work with federations. I work with, so many other athletes to empower them to give them an idea of how to start planning, where to start planning, the directions to go, the importance of things, and just to help keeping them accountable. So there's so many different avenues, but ultimately believe in yourself. Do everything in your power to become the very, very best version of yourself.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Ron. I cannot finish this episode with better than what you were saying now. We'll put all your links down under the episode so people can reach out to you and learn more from you, from the breathing techniques or from your experience, especially that you are an Olympic gold medalist and you're living in the high level of swimming. So we'll put all the details down so people can reach out to you. Roland, thank you for this episode. Thank you for all this interesting insights and advices. Thank you for your time, and hope to see you around.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time. Thank you for hosting a podcast like this, and just allowing people to come to a place and hear from great champions and hear their stories. I think it's really, really important because maybe people resonate with what I say. Maybe people will resonate with your other guests. I think it's a beautiful platform, and I'd like to thank you for giving people this opportunity.
Yeah, everyone from his side trying to improve our sport. So thank you to you, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Have a beautiful evening.
Thank you.